A reading from the book of Ezra, chapter 3. By the 7th month, the people of Israel were all settled in their towns. Then they all assembled in Jerusalem, and Joshua, son of Jehozadak, his fellow priests, and Zerubbabel, son of Shealtiel, together with his relatives, rebuilt the altar of the God of Israel so that they could burn sacrifices on it according to the instructions written in the law of Moses, the man of God. Even though the returning exiles were afraid of the people who were living in the land, they rebuilt the altar where it had stood before. Then they began once again to burn on it the regular morning and evening sacrifices. They celebrated the festival of shelters according to the regulations. Each day they offered the sacrifices required for that day. And in addition, they offered the regular sacrifices to be burned whole, and those to be offered at the new moon festival and at all the other regular assemblies at which the Lord is worshipped, as well as all the offerings that were given to the Lord voluntarily. Although the people had not yet started to rebuild the temple, they began on the first day of the 7th month to burn sacrifices to the Lord. The people gave money to pay the stonemasons and the carpenters, and gave food, drink, and olive oil to be sent to the cities of Tyre and Sidon in exchange for cedar trees from Lebanon, which were to be brought by sea to Joppa. All this was done with the permission of Emperor Cyrus of Persia. So in the 2nd month of the year after they came back to the site of the temple in Jerusalem, they began work. Zerubbabel, Joshua, and the rest of their people, the priests and the Levites, in fact, all the exiles who had come back to Jerusalem, joined in the work. All the Levites 20 years of age or older were put in charge of the work of rebuilding the temple. The Levite Jeshua and his sons and relatives, and Kadmiel and his sons, the clan of Hodaviah, joined together in taking charge of the rebuilding of the temple. They were helped by the Levites of the clan of Henadad. When the builders started to lay the foundation of the temple, the priests in their robes took their places with trumpets in their hands, and the Levites of the clan of Asaph stood there with cymbals. They praised the Lord according to the instructions handed down from the time of King David. They sang the Lord's praises, repeating the refrain, "The Lord is good, and his love for Israel is eternal." Everyone shouted with all their might, praising the Lord, because the work on the foundation of the temple had been started. Many of the older priests, Levites, and heads of clans had seen the first temple, and as they watched the foundation of this temple being laid, they cried and wailed. But the others who were there shouted for joy. No one could distinguish between the joyful shouts and the crying, because the noise they made was so loud that it could be heard for miles. The word of the Lord. A reading from the book of Ezra, chapter 4. The enemies of the people of Judah and Benjamin heard that those who had returned from exile were rebuilding the temple of the Lord, the God of Israel. So they went to see Zerubbabel and the heads of the clans and said, "Let us join you in building the temple. We worship the same God you worship, and we have been offering sacrifices to him ever since Emperor Esarhaddon of Assyria sent us here to live." Zerubbabel, Joshua, and the heads of the clans told them, "We don't need your help to build a temple for the Lord our God. We will build it ourselves, just as Emperor Cyrus of Persia commanded us." Then the people who had been living in the land tried to discourage and frighten the Jews and keep them from building. They also bribed Persian government officials to work against them. They kept on doing this throughout the reign of Emperor Cyrus and into the reign of Emperor Darius. At the beginning of the reign of Emperor Xerxes, the enemies of the people living in Judah and Jerusalem brought written charges against them. Again, in the reign of Emperor Artaxerxes of Persia, Bishlam, Mithridath, Tabeel, and their associates wrote a letter to the emperor. The letter was written in Aramaic and was to be translated when read. Also Rehum, the governor, and Shimshai, the secretary of the province, wrote the following letter to Emperor Artaxerxes about Jerusalem. From Rehum, the governor, from Shimshai, secretary of the province, from their associates, the judges, and from all the other officials who are originally from Erech, Babylon, and Susa in the land of Elam, together with the other peoples whom the great and powerful Ashurbanipal moved from their homes and settled in the city of Samaria and elsewhere in west of Euphrates province. This is the text of the letter. To Emperor Artaxerxes, from his servants who live in west of Euphrates. We want your majesty to know that the Jews who came here from your other territories have settled in Jerusalem and are rebuilding that evil and rebellious city. They have begun to rebuild the walls and will soon finish them. Your Majesty, if this city is rebuilt and its walls are completed, the people will stop paying taxes and your royal revenues will decrease. Now, because we are under obligation to your Majesty, we do not want to see this happen. And so we suggest that you order a search to be made in the records your ancestors kept. If you do, you will discover that this city has always been rebellious and that from ancient times it has given trouble to kings and to rulers of provinces. Its people have always been hard to govern. This is why the city was destroyed. We therefore are convinced that if the city is rebuilt and its walls are completed, your Majesty will no longer be able to control west of Euphrates province. The emperor sent this answer to Rehum, the governor, to Shimshai, secretary of the province, and to their associates who live in Samaria and in the rest of west of Euphrates, greetings. The letter which you sent has been translated and read to me. I gave orders for an investigation to be made, and it has indeed been found that from ancient times Jerusalem has revolted against royal authority and that it has been full of rebels and troublemakers. Powerful kings have reigned there and have ruled over the entire province of west of Euphrates, collecting taxes and revenue. Therefore, you are to issue orders that those men are to stop rebuilding the city until I give further commands. Do this at once so that no more harm may be done to my interests. As soon as this letter from Emperor Artaxerxes was read to Rehum, Shimshai, and their associates, they hurried to Jerusalem and forced the Jews to stop rebuilding the city. Work on the temple had been stopped and had remained at a standstill until the second year of the reign of Emperor Darius of Persia. The word of the Lord.